All right. Well, week 3. Oh my gosh, we have gotten so far. I can't believe how quickly this is going. It's kind of nuts. I wow, I lost. Here we go. I can't believe how quick it's going. Super excited though. I love what I see happening in the Facebook group. Thank you so much, all of you guys who are engaging, posting, and making new friends. That is super exciting for me to kind of watch conversations happening there. So thank you to those of you who are getting in there. I know those of you who are able, to participate, you're getting the most out of this. So I am just appreciative and I hope that you're finding lots of value out of this. So let me go ahead, share my screen, and let's jump in to our training. Here we go. All right. All right. So week 3 of our challenge. And I want to kind of, before we dive in, just remind you, we are in the middle of a challenge, which means there's a prize. Like, don't lose sight of that. So I want to encourage you to stay engaged in the challenge itself, stay participating in the actual activities, because there's a prize at the end of this, a $500 cash prize. So make sure, one, you're filling out that tracker. So I sent the tracker week 1. I sent it again last week, and I will send it again tonight in your recap email that you get. So make sure you're checking those things off. It's doing really the hard work for you in terms of adding all your points. All you have to do though is check off what you actually have done. So make sure you're using that. I will have you submit them this coming weekend. So don't fall off this week. This will be a really good week. And we're really kind of putting it all together. What I really hope is that you're seeing each week is building on itself, and it's kind of coming together to create this strategy for us during this holiday time, right? And ultimately, this is a strategy I hope that you can use at any time, right? Obviously, this is a stressful time right now, or chaotic, I should say, the holidays, right? Which is why I wanted to do this challenge. It's why I named it the 21-day holiday survival challenge, because we're really just trying to survive this time right now. And so, but we know there's going to be other seasons, when life gets kind of crazy. And so what I'm really trying to give you is a blueprint. What are the things that we can focus on when life gets a little crazy, so that we can continue to make progress and not make, backwards progress, right? And so I just wanted to start with, what are our overall goals of this challenge, right? Number 1, I built this to, 1, mitigate a lot of the weight gain that happens during the holiday season. We know, because of the abundance of food and just structure kind of going out the window, that weight gain can easily happen, right? And for most of us, that means it's taking us farther away from our goals, which a lot of us, we're looking at January as a time to then get back into things, right? But what we end up doing is setting our starting point even farther back, right? So we want to mitigate any weight gain while setting ourselves up for fat loss. So if you were here for our kickoff call, I talked a little bit about how I periodize nutrition when I work with people. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're periodizing our nutrition. We're taking this time right now and creating this period or phase to set ourselves up, right? And so I hope that you're seeing how that's kind of developing over these weeks, right? So so I want to recap, right? So we can kind of see where we're headed and where this is going. So week 1 was all about awareness. There are 2 things, really. One, that we kind of were focusing our attention on: quality of the food that we're eating, and then the quantity. Now, we're not spending a whole lot of time on the quality aspect, but certainly having that week where you guys were looking at where your nutrition currently is at should have been a little eye-opening. How high a quality is your diet at this point? Now, again, we're not focusing purely on that during this challenge. Again, we're just trying to survive, right? But you should know that the quality of your diet is really going to, determine your health, right? So if you're looking for health out of your nutrition, then you need to put a good emphasis on the quality of food, right? The higher the quality, the higher quality health that you're going to have. The lower quality, well, it's obvious, right? So that's one piece that we saw We're not necessarily, again, doing a whole lot about that right now because we're just trying to get through this time. The other piece is quantity, right? And we know that quantity is going to determine heavily your weight, right? And so this is why that's a huge piece of what we're doing, is finding, what are our guidelines, I guess we could say, in terms of, well, how much should we be eating, right? And so week one, we were able to kind of get a sense of, well, where am I? Now, please hear me. I am not trying to say one is better than the other. Instead, what I want you to hear is that the two of these actually should be married together, right? If we can have a good balance of quality food in the right amounts, this is where we're going to find that sweet spot. This is where most people want to be. They want to be healthier and they want to be able to control weight in a manageable way, right? And so if we can marry having enough quality food in the right amounts, this is where we find success. So week one, we were just kind of opening our eyes to where are we with that. Week two, we were then creating guidelines for, well, what does that mean? Like, how much should I be actually eating and what should I be focusing on, right? And so I always like to use analogies as much as I can. So I want you to think in terms of money, right? Because we all have to deal with money and it's something we can relate to. So most of us should have some sense or some sort of budget in terms of how we spend our money, right? And so how does that start? Well, we got to first determine, well, how much money do we have coming in, right? How we got to be clear about the the means that we actually have. From there, then we have to look at, well, our bills, right? What are the things that have to get paid? And hopefully, if you're doing things right, you are taking care of bills first. You're setting aside money to pay the rent, pay the electricity, money set aside for groceries, gas, right? The necessities. And then typically, hopefully, you have money left over. This is called discretionary money, right? At this point, because your needs are taken care of, what you do with your discretionary money has very little consequence, right? If I have, let's say, $500 left over of discretionary money, does it matter whether I go buy a designer bag or I actually use that, week over week with smaller purchases? It doesn't matter, right? Because my needs were met. I prioritized my bills and made sure I had enough for the things I know will come up: groceries, gas, eating out, whatnot. And this money then is kind of free, right? That's how we're looking at our guidelines and what we did last week. How much should we be spending, right? Calories, right? Where should we be? Let's get a good sense of where that needs to be. And then let's prioritize our bills. Our bills are going to be protein because we know protein is not the macro that we tend to get enough of. It's the one we have to usually make an effort towards. But once we have protein taken care of and we know what our guidelines or our budget is in terms of calories, doesn't matter then where our fats and carbs come in. Not really, not during this time. Now, is this a long-term strategy for health? No, but it's certainly going to be super helpful during this time when, we can't necessarily focus on everything, right? We're just trying to survive, maintain. Great, we're doing what we need to. We know our guidelines, our boundaries. We know what our priority is, protein, and then we have our discretionary that's left over to enjoy, right? So this allows us to not gain a ton of weight, to not make backtrack progress, right? And it allows us to enjoy some of the fun food that is obviously available during this time. So with that, we then want to move into the last piece that we're going to put into this puzzle, right? So if we have our guidelines, we know what our priorities are, we know that we can have a little discretionary fun here and there. What about exercise? What role does it actually play in weight management? Okay, so this is an important piece because there's a lot of kind of confusing information out there. So a couple of things. We know if we're talking weight loss that we need to be in a deficit, right? That's science. You have to eat less in order to lose weight. Now, it would make sense then that exercise would help us be in that deficit because it would help us burn more calories, right? But that's problematic. Okay. And that's problematic for three reasons. Number one, it is really difficult to know for sure how many calories that you are burning ever, period, like day to day. Like you're never burning the same amount. even within like a day to day, week to week, that's a fluctuating number because your body is super adaptive and your body is always adapting to whatever you're doing, right? So for example, I was just out of town this past weekend. My personal hotel was several blocks from the conference itself. And so I did a ton of walking. I had to walk to the conference. Lunch, I would walk back because I had a kitchenette, eat lunch, then I'd walk back to the conference. And then I'd usually go out to dinner and we'd walk to a dinner place. And I had to walk back to my hotel room. I was putting 14, 15, upwards of 17,000 steps each day because of all of that. And I can tell you that I am my hunger has actually gone through the roof the last couple of days just because my expenditure was so high. And I can tell right now my body is in a recovery mode, but I was also super stressed with traveling and just the conference itself, right? And I can just feel that my body's asking for more energy right now. It's adapting to what I did, the stress I put on it over the last 4 days. Which leads me to 2, intense exercise is actually going to increase your hunger, right? My hunger is up right now because my activity level went through the roof over a matter of 3 days. And so that could be super problematic. We're going to use exercise to create a deficit, but we're also going to increase hunger. Well, that, yeah, that's just a recipe for a really miserable experience. And the last is that we get really efficient at movements that we repeat. So for example, lots of people love to take up running because it's easy and it's free, right? You just go outside and run. Now that first time you run, let's say you run a mile, and let's just arbitrarily say you burn 200 calories. Not that we even would really know that, again, because it's super difficult to know, but let's just say it was 200 calories. Well, as you continue to do that, let's say the next week you're still running a mile, you're going to realize that it's going to get easier and easier, right? And what's happening, again, your body's adapting to you and the fact that you're putting the stress of running on it, and it's not going to like that. It doesn't like to expend extra energy, and so it's going to get efficient at that. And so you are now probably burning 100 and let's say 70 calories, and then it'll only be 150, right? Now it's not going to get down to 0, but what you should notice is like the body is going to get more efficient because it doesn't want to be expending energy, right? It's going to find ways to make it easier for you. You're also going to get stronger, right? And lung capacity will increase. The body will adapt in that way too. So what do we do then, right? If we see that like it's super hard to even like pinpoint how many calories, if we're going too intense, we're actually going to increase hunger and then we're going to get efficient. The question then becomes like, what do we do with that, right? Now, here's the rub. We need and should be active. I am not trying to say we shouldn't be active. I am a huge proponent of movement and exercise. Movement is going to increase your calorie expenditure. So that's important, right? We should be utilizing the energy that we do bring in, not excessively, but we do want to utilize some of that energy. In fact, part of why you eat is for energy to move. And we know that exercise is a habit of people who actually are able to manage their weight well. So naturally thin people, and I put that in quotes because you'll see why. Naturally thin people, and then people who've lost weight and who've kept it off, and I'm going to say kept it off for 3+ years. It is almost without doubt that exercise is a part of their lifestyle. So we know that it's important, right? So what do we do, right? That sounds like a really conflicting information. Like, okay, what do we do with exercise then? And always, I'm going to say we need to be strategic, right? It's important that we understand exercise, how it works, how the body responds, and then we use it to our advantage. We can, I don't want to say cheat the system, but instead use it in a way that's actually going to be helpful and not make this process more difficult. Okay, so one of the first and best ways to increase activity, now I'm sure if you're a client, you could probably tell me, so it's one of the first things we probably start talking about, is walking. And I love walking. Not only is it free, like it's kind of like running. Obviously, you're just not going as fast. You just go outside, like everybody can do it. It's low impact, right? It's funny, so for this next screen, I went and I started listing out the benefits, and I had double this, and I was like, I can't write all of them on this slide here. But I did want to put some of the ones I think that are most important here, right? I mean, as far as incorporating this, it is more than just activity, right? It is, it'll help you reduce stress. It's going to help reduce blood sugar. So I just saw numbers like there's a huge number of people who are pre-diabetic. That means, and those people may or may not even know that they're pre-diabetic. We know diabetes is on the rise as well, right? This is a way to reduce blood sugar. It improves digestion. Gosh, if you ever have a heavy meal or you overeat, it happens, right? Go for a walk. It's going to actually help kickstart digestion. You'll feel so much better. It's also going to help bring down blood sugar, right? If you had, let's say, a very high carbohydrate, high like sugary meal, go for a walk. Put that put that sugar, I should say, to work right away. Reduces our chances of chronic disease. Who doesn't want that, right? Lowers blood pressure. It increases energy, improves your mood, right? I don't think I've ever gone on a walk and felt worse afterwards. In fact, sometimes I will purposely go when I'm in a bad mood or I just need like a head change. It's a fantastic way to get out of, kind of like a negative mindset. It improves your sleep, strengthens your bones. That's super important as we age, and helps you maintain your weight because it's increasing activity while also doing all of this, right? And for most people, it's also not going to increase hunger unless you do what I did and you go from an average of 12,000 steps to 17, right? That was a huge jump for me. And so, and I'll talk a little bit in a moment about why that actually increased my hunger. But really, it was just a stress that was too much, too fast for me. So, and there's so much more. There's so many more. Honestly, I had a hard time actually trying to narrow it down to those 10, but you get it, right? There's a lot of benefits to it. And so we want to start incorporating it. And it's really one of the first things you want to start with because it's easy. And for the most part, you can do it as long as you're injury free. Obviously, if you have some kind of injury, then you're a bit limited. So you'd have to get a little more creative. So how much do we aim for? Well, it's important to kind of know, yeah, what's the norm and what should be our goal. So if you have a Fitbit, a Whoop, an Oura Ring, even your Apple iPhone, if you have it on you, you can actually take a look. You can go into your health settings or use whatever device and you can kind of get an idea. It'll give you averages, your daily, weekly, monthly averages to kind of see where you're landing. So anything less than 5,000, that's actually sedentary. I actually found that quite surprising when I learned that, because I think a lot of people are actually hovering in that space, right? Especially if you have a desk job. Low activities, 5 to 7,500. You're somewhat active if you're, 75 to 10,000. I found that surprising. Active is not till you hit 10,000. To about 12,000, and you are highly active when you hit over basically 12,000 steps. So in my opinion, and I think pretty popular common belief is if we can aim for the bare minimum 8,000 a day, 8,000 steps, that's a great place to start. I know there's like this big push for like 10,000 steps a day. Certainly if you're already active, or you're in that range, definitely you can push yourself, to go to that range. But I think just having a baseline of 8,000 is going to be a good place to kind of aim for. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat here that, if you are falling in the sedentary, then we don't want to jump you straight up to like 8,000 or 10,000. We want to be modest and we want to be reasonable. Just like week 1 was all about awareness with nutrition, spend a couple of days and get aware of like, where is your activity level in terms of your steps? Now, what's nice is we have devices connected to us all the time, like our iPhones, and some of you have, Fitbits and those kinds of trackers. We can use those to kind of already see like, where are we right now? If you're somebody who's sedentary, let's say you look and your average is like 4,000 steps a day. Again, I don't want you jumping straight to 8,000 or 10,000. My recommendation always is add 1,000, get comfortable there, usually for about a week, and then go ahead and increase, right? With our ultimate goal of getting to about 8,000. Obviously 10,000 would be awesome, but let's be reasonable that not every day we'll be able to do that, especially if your job doesn't allow it. And time right now is crunched, right? This is why we're doing this challenge. So let's be reasonable, and let's do something that's actually attainable for us. So I just want to say, just be careful. Like I said, start where you're at. Start with that awareness piece. Are you sedentary? Then make a modest goal of just adding 1,000 steps to that, getting comfortable there, adding another 1,000, and getting yourself to the 8,000. For me, this is why I'm actually sore from all my walking, because I went from an average of like 10 to 12,000 to like 14, 15. One day I hit 17,000. So I'm feeling that, right? I overdid it in terms of the walking. I exceeded by quite a bit what my normal is. So my shins are actually quite sore right now. And I'm feeling it in terms of my hunger is up right now. Again, I had other factors, just stress. There was a lot of mental stress and just traveling and whatnot. So that's contributing as well. But certainly you can overdo it with walking. As much as it's great for you, it's low impact, it should be reducing stress. It can if you go too far with it, right? So just be careful, be reasonable with that. So that's going to be our first goal is, can we just increase activity with steps, right? And we're going to work with where you're at. But my goal for you is going to be, can we get to, or can we hit at least 8,000 a day? I think for most of us, that's something that is attainable right now. If you have a desk job, I recommend maybe putting an alarm in every hour, that you get up and you just take a lap around the office or your house, wherever that you're at. So at least you're regularly getting up and you can get in some steps. Obviously, things like parking farther away, I regularly do that just because it's an easy way to just get some more steps in. Taking the stairs, obviously, little things like that can just help in terms of just increasing those steps without you having to necessarily go take a walk. Although I highly recommend that as well. It's a great decompressor at the end of the day. It's also a great way to start the day. When we were online at home, it was wonderful to start a little later. So I would get up and I would go for a walk, and it was amazing what that did for my mindset and just readying me for the day as well. So certainly take those walks if you can, but for those who can't, obviously find little ways to incorporate walking. Okay, so that's number one, the easiest way that we can go ahead and incorporate exercise or movement, I should say, in a more strategic way. Second thing we can do is to start resistance training, my favorite. If you know me personally or follow me, you probably picked up on the fact that I actually really love strength training. That's interchangeable. You can say resistance training or strength training. Sometimes I find people respond better to the word resistance. Same idea, right? We're creating resistance in order to elicit a certain response. So why would we actually want to do resistance training? A couple reasons, right? So number one, I'll be honest that it is going to help actually, let me say it like this. So quality of life, I'll start there. As we age, quality of life tends to diminish, right? And one of the reasons it starts to diminish is because what we're able to do seems to be less and less, right? So let me give an example. If you ask a 60-plus-year-old person to sit on the floor versus a 20-year-old, you already know the 60-plus-year-old is going to have a much harder time getting up off of the ground. In fact, they will start, as you get to a certain age, people will start to avoid sitting on the floor. Why? Because it gets really difficult to get up. Why? Because they're weaker, right? They're not as strong. And so we see a lot of times that quality of life is actually diminishing, really mainly due to just our capabilities, right? We're not as strong as we used to be, right? It also gets a lot easier to gain weight as we get older because muscle mass has decreased. As your strength goes down, it generally means you have less muscle mass on you. And so weight gain gets a lot easier. So a lot of people like to just blame aging with weight gain. Well, again, I think I did a post or a reel on it's not it's not a function of your age, it's a function of your lifestyle. You're not doing the things that kept you strong, and that kept you active, that allowed you to actually maintain your weight much easier, right? And so by maintaining more weight and even not weight, sorry, muscle, and even increasing your muscle, you can make weight management way easier. And with that, muscle actually helps you burn more calories at rest. Muscle is more compact. You could have two people who weigh the same amount, but with different body compositions. And the one will look smaller actually than the other. So I'm actually going to show you a picture of myself. And one, I was like, I really didn't want to put this in there, but I think pictures just tell the story a lot better. So I'm virtually the same weight in these pictures. One of them, I am obviously, my body composition is not as good as the other one. And the difference really is just in one picture, I have more fat and less muscle, and the other one, I have less fat and more muscle. So you can see that it's not so much the scale, right? But your body composition, right? And so here's me on the left. I was not doing any strength training. I was actually doing a lot of really high intense activity. And I was not prioritizing my food in terms of like what I needed to actually fuel my my performance there, right? On the right side there, I am strictly doing strength training. I did no cardio there. And now I'm actually aware of what I'm eating and I'm trying to fuel properly for my activity. So virtually the same weight. I think there's only a couple pounds difference between there. And yet I think the side view, you can really see I look a lot different. I look a lot smaller, yet I'm virtually the same weight, right? And that's just because, again, muscle is much more dense, it's much more compact. And so you can actually look way different, and yet the scale is virtually the same. And I encourage you, like, go Google like body fat percentages, but the same weight, and you'll get tons of pictures. In fact, I was actually going to use somebody else's picture, but I felt bad about just randomly taking some stranger's picture. So I just was like, fine, I'll just put my pictures here for you to see. In this case, that body composition is really what we want, right? And so really what's happening here on the right is a lot of strength training, focused strength training, rather than cardio, which there's nothing wrong with cardio, but you need to know the context of whether like it's actually working for you and what your goals are. Okay. So some other benefits, it is obviously going to increase your calories burned because at rest, in fact, just go back real quick, that me on the right here is actually burning more calories at rest than me on the left because I just have more muscle on me. Muscle is super expensive. The body has to work really hard to not only create that muscle, but then keep it. So me on the right gets to eat a lot more than me on the left. And I look better, right? So putting on and spending the time to actually increase muscle mass is going to change the way you look, and then also change the way that you're able to eat, right? So it's going to make it easier then to maintain a healthy body weight, because I can eat more at this point, right? Helps you look leaner and more toned. When women tell me they want to be toned, what they're really looking for is more muscle on their body. It doesn't mean looking like a bodybuilder. It means just having more muscle mass and more muscle mass exposed, really. Some other great benefits beyond just physical: decreases the risk of osteoporosis. We know that's a really big issue, especially for women as we age. And that's just because as we age, we are not doing weight bearing activity. So when you're doing weight bearing. That just means like when you're lifting or carrying something heavy, you're putting weight on your bones and it actually makes them stronger. It's kind of the same idea as a muscle. Like as you stress the bone, it actually responds, it adapts, and it gets stronger. I actually have DEXA scans for about a year, and then COVID happened and I couldn't go anymore. A DEXA scan is just like an x-ray of your whole body. And I did it to see my body fat percentage, but it also showed me my bone density. And as the year progressed, you could actually see my bone density going higher and higher, because as I strength trained, I was putting more and more stress, I guess, on the bones, right? And so they were adapting by becoming stronger and stronger. So if you're concerned as you age, you know, you want your bone health to be there, then strength training is going to help with that. A decrease in sarcopenia, that's just a fancy medical term for the loss of muscle as we age. I have a hard time with that because it makes it sound like aging is the reason why we lose muscle. But again, it's a function of our lifestyle. We're just not using those muscles. We're not making any stress on the muscle itself to then be stronger, right? And so obviously, if you're focusing on muscle building, then you're not going to lose muscle. Creates a more youthful look. Who doesn't want that? Increases confidence, of course, like you just feel better. And I don't even just mean physically, I just mean because you have more capability, right? It's just nice to know, hey, I can pick up that heavy package of water over there, or I have the confidence to know I can do something on my own. I don't have to rely on somebody else to help me, right? Just confidence in just quality of life and just doing life in general, picking up my niece and nephew. I want to be able to play with them as long as possible, right? Reduces the risk of injury, obviously if you're stronger, increases, you know, quality of life, all of that. I can't stress that piece enough there. So how do we actually do that? What does that look like? What do we focus on, right? So if we're going to do that, and I'm just going to go through this quickly because I am going to send you guys a template for if you'd like to start doing that. Like, what does that look like? But basically, you're going to want to look at large muscle groups, mainly like your legs, right? Those muscles are larger, so there's more return on investment there. But versus like your bicep, I would still encourage you to work out your biceps, but obviously there's a lot less return there than, let's say, your legs, your glutes, your hamstrings, right? Compound movements, what does that mean? It just means that you're using more than one muscle, right, at a time. So if I did like a bicep curl, I'm really only using my bicep. And I know that it's not a compound movement because I'm only using one joint, right? I'm just moving my elbow. Think of like a lunge. If I were to lunge, I'm going to hinge at my hips, my knees, and my ankles. So every muscle attached then to my hips, my knees, and my ankles are going to get used. That's a compound exercise, right? We want to stress the muscle because the adaptation there is that it grows stronger, right? So, you know, when I see ladies just using their 5-pound dumbbells week after week and they don't ever increase, that's movement, that's great, but it's not going to create an adaptation. It's not going to allow the muscle to say like, hey, if she's going to keep picking up these heavy things, like I got to get stronger because I don't really want to be terrible at this all the time, right? We need to then recover from that. This is why sleep and nutrition is so important. And you don't have to be training every day, all day. I literally strength train 3 times a week, if that, sometimes 4 times if I have time. But you don't need to be, because it's that time in between your workouts where your muscles are actually recovering and growing and doing all of that amazing stuff. And last, you need adequate nutrition. And guess what 2 things we would focus on if we were resistance training and wanting to increase muscle? We would focus on adequate calories and protein. Hey, look at that. Isn't that exactly what we're focusing on, right? So this all comes full circle. So this is how we are creating our strategy for this holiday season and anytime. Again, remember, this is not just for now. Anytime life just gets nutty and you just need a few things to hold on to so that you can maintain, you don't go off the rails, that you have something to focus on. Now you have your strategy, right? You know, okay, I'm going to have my budget, right? So you know how much sufficient food to be coming in so that we're not overdoing it or underdoing it. Also, we know that our main priority is going to be protein, because we know it's going to help control hunger and cravings. And it's also going to be the thing that it's hard to hit, right? So if we can have just one main priority, we want it to be protein. That then allows carbs and fats to come in, where they may, so long as it's within the budget, right? And then if we're exercising, we can then put that food and that protein to use in our recovery, and have kind of the full package there. Now, I wouldn't say that this is like what we should be doing long term, but certainly this is a great strategy for getting through these like chaotic, stressful times. Certainly you want something that's feasible, that's not going to, take you backwards in terms of your progress, but actually help you maintain, and if anything, help, propel you in the future, right? And then our steps, right? Just keeping movement high, not too high, but somewhere where we know we're still getting the benefits of being active, staying out of that sedentary group, and increasing just quality of life altogether. So let's pull everything together. So for this week, remember, don't drop off this week. This is the week we're pulling it all together. We're going to announce a winner next week. So this is our last week of really getting this all together here. So number one, we're still going to focus on our budget, right? Our calories, making sure that we are either eating sufficiently, because some of us found out we're actually not eating enough, or not overeating, right? Making sure we're staying, again, in our budget, and making sure protein is our priority. Two, we want to begin increasing our steps. My ultimate goal would be, the very least, we're aiming for 8,000 a day. But if you're in that sedentary group, then make a slow increase so that you're not overdoing it and, making yourself actually more sore or tired. And then I would love for people to start incorporating some resistance training. And so I'm going to offer you guys just a very, not a simple, there's the word I want, framework for how to create a resistance program. And I'm going to give you a lot of details in that. You can read more in that and reach out to me if you have questions with that. So that's what we want to focus on. This is really the strategy throughout this time. Now our challenge is going to obviously wrap up next week. But my hope and my goal for you is that you can continue that even through the next 2 weeks after the challenge. And then once you're ready, right, if you would like fat loss, then you've hopefully set a nice stage for that to actually happen. So, this is what I want us to kind of focus on for this week. Make sure we're filling out that tracker. You're going to turn those in this weekend. Sunday, basically, so that I can start figuring out our winner. This week, we're going to post pictures of our steps. So I know that like my Oura Ring, I have an app, and so I can see my steps there. I could upload that picture. You could do it from Apple Health, a Whoop, Fitbit. And if you don't have any of those things, but it's like from your phone, you can type it in there. I'm fine with that as well. But we want to get some accountability for steps, 8,000 or more. But even if you're not hitting that, put it in there for accountability. If you're going to try out some resistance training, I would love for us to post some workout selfies. I'd love to see some of your faces a little bigger than the little the little circles that I see there. And remember, you're getting points for all of this, which goes towards the winner. And then I would love for us to continue commenting on other people's posts. I think that's the best part, is just engaging with one another and holding each other accountable, and just, knowing that you're doing this with, a group of people. So that is your homework for this week. So we're going to keep what we did last week, keep getting better at that. If you had questions about your calories or protein, please reach out. A couple people did, and I was more than happy to kind of help direct people and help them figure out their calories and protein. So you can message me on Facebook, you can email me, you can find me on Instagram. There's plenty of ways. Just reach out, and I'm more than happy to help you get that piece, pulled together. And then for this week, we want to, focus on getting those steps up and possibly getting some resistance training in. I will be sending you guys an email probably midweek. We're going to do kind of a little like exit survey. So if you think that you're in the running to win, you have to fill that out. So pay attention to the next couple emails that'll be coming out. There'll be instructions on how to actually win. And then we will hopefully have a call. I'd love to have a call with all of you to see how it went and where you want to go next. So, all right. I thought I saw some questions coming in, so I'm going to take a look real quick. Great question. So do I eat similarly on days that I strength train versus recovery days? And I do. I actually don't make it too complex. I know there's a lot of coaches out there that will say, on workout days, like more carbohydrates, or on recovery days, just less calories. I make it really simple for myself. As much as I love nutrition and I do love tracking, I don't know about love, but I like it, and it's not a big burden for me. I also like simplicity. I don't want my whole life to revolve around food. And so if you saw last week's training where I gave you the strategy of calorie cycling, the idea there, not to cycle your calories, but the idea though was it's based on averages, right? And so it doesn't really matter so long as I'm hitting my overall average for the week, how much I'm eating on a day-to-day basis. Because again, at the beginning of this, I said it's really hard to know how much you're burning day to day. Like right now, I'm pretty sure I'm burning more as I'm trying to recover from this weekend, both from the physical and mental stress I went through. And there's no way that I actually know how much. I just know my hunger is pretty high right now. So I need to eat and recover, basically. So again, averages are more important than a day to day. And I just find most people don't have the time to be like, okay, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, when I strength train, I'm going to have 2000 calories, but on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, I'm going to have 18. That just gets really difficult and unrealistic for most people. So I would just look at averages. So, yeah, in general, sorry, I saw the second part of your question there, Janelle. Again, protein is always high for me because even if I am not necessarily strength training that day, I still want to preserve muscle mass. And we know that having sufficient protein coming in, it will help preserve when I'm not, let's say, able to strength train. So for example, for the last week, I worked out literally once because of the conference itself and getting ready for that, as well as being a teacher. And so it was a little more important that I kept protein high so that my body still has a signal to retain the muscle, because I couldn't send a signal of like stress and adaptation on the muscle itself. So again, I keep things simple, and protein is usually on the higher side. 1 gram per pound of body weight for me is usually helpful. Sample of a good workout. Yeah, so you will be getting a PDF I put together. It's going to basically give you a template for you to create. And I tell you exactly how to create that. I give you the movements, and you're going to pick what you're comfortable with. And I have the structure right there for you. It's going to be kind of plug and play. So, yep, you'll get that in an email tonight. What else, guys? Anything I can answer for you? And I have some suggestions in there in terms of like, if you don't have super heavy, I mean, it shouldn't, you probably shouldn't be starting super heavy, but if they're not heavy enough, like you do have the smaller, like 5 pound, 10 pound dumbbells, things that you can do to increase that resistance, because at some point you will need more, obviously, for growth. Certainly if you want to get into it later on down the line, I would say invest in some dumbbells. That's probably the best investment I ever made was dumbbells, because they're versatile. You can use them for just about anything, and they take up not very much room. And now with these like adjustable ones, those are amazing. Of course, I already have like a ton of dumbbells in the garage. But to be honest, I'd say 3 pairs of dumbbells would be great. I think like for most average women, having like 10, 15s and 20s is sufficient. And then if you really want to bump it up, start getting heavier ones, but 10s, 15s and 20s will take you far, because I mean, 2 20s to get, you got 40 pounds right there. I mean, you could do a lot. So yay. Anything else before I let you guys go? Oh, we got lots of people. Oh, I gotta go back. Okay, let me see. Awesome. Get those steps in. Yes, absolutely. All right. So fill out those trackers, guys. Post your pictures of your steps. Get those workout selfies in. That's actually going to encourage me to hopefully hit the garage a couple times this week for sure. Keep those comments. I really, really love all the engagement. I think that's been the best part for me, is just seeing you guys and seeing like some of my friends that are like from different places connect. It's awesome. So yay. I really love the community that we're creating here. So, all right. I don't see any more questions. So I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you guys so much. On Monday, we'll have another one where I'll announce the winner. So you guys have your work this week. Get in your homework and reach out, guys. If you have questions, I am super happy to help and, do what I can for you guys. So happy Monday. Bye, guys.